Now, they understand it. Sometimes the teachers don't know what the heck, who is this guy? But the kids from Dr. Seuss, and they brighten up and look, and we pause again, and we have some fun with it. But the kids get it. I mean, they really do get it.
Yes. And back to the seriousness of the nature of what you're doing. What would happen if all of a sudden this really became mandated to eliminate the waste in using this method? Couldn't the government issue contracts all over? Wouldn't that be like the right thing to do? Which is you want to talk about the protection of the United States of America and and really homeland defense?
It might be some fun for some of your listeners, and this is going to be terribly pompous, but they might be able to say a few years from now, hey, I remember listening to a program wherein what looked like terribly new and innovative has now become the conventional wisdom. It will become the conventional wisdom. It'll be, oh, another plasma converter, what's new? That's when the success occurs, when that's integrated into our society as part of how we keep ourselves safe. Lights on the street, policemen, hand railings, a whole world of things we take so much for granted. And governments now, it's interesting that you mention that, because I just came back from a presentation in Rome where in Italy they're starting to say that we're going to adopt this technology as a primary process for our nation. There are a lot of peoples around the world starting to think that way. So, and now we even have New York City. Now, we don't say that New York City is going to be contracting with Startech Environmental, but with regard to the adoption of the thinking and the technology and the awareness that, yes, something could be done. I'm changing subjects. When I talked to Carol Browner a few years ago, she was a great EPA administrator in back, 8 or 9 years. And I said that, Ms. Browner, we would be happy if you adjusted your air quality standards to be more stringent. And she looked at me cynically. Of course, I wanted to tilt the table in my direction but she said, we can't criminalize everyone. The point being here, though, is that the technology will allow us to do that. Mm-hmm. It's going to take a little time. So what we find as acceptable now may be abhorrent to us. It might look quaint and primitive 10 years from now. That's going on right now.
Interesting. You would think that what you have produced, I would think, and I would imagine that audiences would think that the need for it is so desperate. And I think the only reason why it doesn't become an immediate systemic imperative is that the elimination of waste occurs outside of public perception. It's a behind-the-scenes side effort. Yeah. Unless you're in the business of it, it's not occurring. It's not in consciousness. And therefore, it's not in the thinking every day. It's not in the public awareness. It's not in the papers. Yes, if you get environmental news that tracks it, watches it, pays attention to it, great. If you don't, then it's not occurring. And what is not in consciousness for you and I as citizens is not necessarily occurring, even if it is. So it's sneaky. It's a phenomenon that is occurring, and it's outside of public perception as citizens. That's part of what takes so long to get it adopted into mainstream. But the other part is, as I was thinking about this, is that it really should be part of, you want to talk about homeland security? If this administration really wants to bring in the total seriousness, you cannot have this solution at a systemic level live outside, be residenced outside, put infringed to an environmental thing. It must be adopted as an integral part of homeland security. One would think that this must be ushered in to, whether it's this administration, whether it's the Democratic or Republican, it doesn't matter. Whatever is the leadership administration at the time, it has to be brought in centrally and made part of and built into law, actually, if this is to go on to cover the dangerous nature of what's already out there. Startech is going to catch a lot of what's occurring and start to be built into processes. And yet at the same time, it is a race against time, is it not?
It is. As a matter of fact, it's interesting that you mentioned Homeland Security. We put forth a white paper to Tom Ridge when he was just probably didn't even have his files straightened out at home at Homeland. So perhaps too new. A thing called Project Backstop, and Backstop would work the following way. We operate on the assumption that there will be an event with either chemical or biological weapons, and it could very well be in a New York subway or something of that sort, where a little bit, a little dab will do you. I know that's cynical as hell, but in that situation, if there is such a material, as happened in Japan with sarin, if there is such a material in such a place, what one has to do, that's lethal material. What one has to do is take the tool and the skills to the spot and just completely destroy it there, or right in that 50 yards of where it is in that locality, as compared to getting some firemen or policemen in spacesuits to gather it up and put it someplace and take it someplace, all of which is undetermined. But for example, if it was going to be gathered up in New York City being a high-profile target, and taken off to, I don't know, Maryland or Virginia, that material would be moving again across state lines through everyone's community. And every step of the way, there'd have to be an emergency action plan if the bus hits the truck, et cetera, et cetera. It's incredible. It's
by the grace of God that something horrific hasn't unfolded as of yet.
Well, you know what? It's so easy to happen. It's going to happen. I mean, it can even be a little bit of anthrax, and I'm not gloom and doom, but by golly, there's a lot of people after us, Kim, and so something's going to happen, and there'll be a bunch of chaos and programs initiated, and we essentially said to the administration, look, go get a system, have one fire truck, in a manner of speaking, a mobile plasma converter system, have one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast.
That would be fabulous.
It would, and it's cheap and so smart. I mean, whomever is head of Homeland Security, if someone said, well, what are you doing for us? Well, I can point to this tool. And now I'm going to be terribly cynical. Even if the person, the head of it, wasn't sure if it would work or not, now this is really cynical, he ought to have it just to be able to say he's doing something positive really proactive as compared to sending out leaflets or teaching the police how to put gas masks on, etc. All of which is important.
But you have systems actually up and working, so yes. They wouldn't need to go through that exercise of futility or to take that mentality point of view, because you already have demonstration capability. This is not at a concept level. These are built, these are working, these are going. What if your demand exceeds your supply in terms of manufacturing? And we only have a few minutes left. I always ask the hardest questions at the end, but heck, I can't help myself. What happens? There's a wonderful gentleman who told me all about your company named Lonnie Maxfield. And Lonnie's a brilliant guy and has his own global systemic solution and is really inspired my learning about your company and your contribution. We want to thank Lonnie Maxfield today. And so what happens if the demand exceeds the supply?
Well, we have anticipated that. People would say that's a good problem. Well, it's not really. Not being fulfilled supply is harmful. But we do have relationships with some Fortune 500 companies who would be delighted to partner with us and co-manufacture.
So if all of a sudden a huge boom happens, the chain reaction happens in the positive way, then you're ready to rock and roll.
Yes, we'll outsource, yes.
Very good. Okay, please give your web address.
Okay, the web is www.startech, and it's STARTECH, one word, STARTECH.net. And so you can see a lot about us there. Anyone who wants to talk to me about anything at all, my private email is JFL, Joseph F. Longo, JFL at startech.net, one word, STARTECH. We're a public company. You can see a lot of us in public filings, a lot about us. Our symbol is STHK. So there's a lot of information